All right, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, welcome. So sorry we missed this live yesterday, but here we are today with Berserk versus Human Boy. We're in for quite the series today, folks, so let's get straight to it. I've got the replays from the series they played yesterday. We're just going to go through them all here real quick and just blast through the series. I understand the next semifinal stream is coming up very shortly, so let's get straight to it. We're going to start with Human Boy's perspective. He is playing Tzeentch. We're up against Bretonnia, two S-tier factions, clearly. And taking a look at the builds here, looks like we've got Chaos Lord of Tzeentch, Anti-Large, a couple of Centaurs as well on each flank, with some Screamers up in the sky. Cultist of Tzeentch going to be the caster here, with Lore of Fire, of course. Marauders and Marauder Spears for infantry support. As for Bretonnia, Albric de Bordelot is going to be leading the charge here. And yeah, we've got some Spearmen at Arms, Peasant Mobs, and some Peasant Bowmen. Looks like some Men-at-Arms Polearms, Damsel of Heavens, and Damsel of Life. Very interesting. I think the Damsel of Heavens is meant to be kind of a distraction piece here. Initially, Damsel of Life has regrowth hidden in the woods, and got Knights of the Lion-Hearted and Grail Knights also with some more Knights of the Realm hidden there in the woods. So I see some spells being cast. Yeah, it looks like, I think, a Cascading Fire Cloak briefly on those Screamers as they engage Albric. It's going to be a very cost-effective engagement for the Regiment of Renowned Screamers there. The Shrieking Sky Rays getting some really solid damage on Albric, all things considered. You can see the Cultist pulls up close, helps support their demonic leadership. But yeah, so far, extremely cost-effective trade. We see the Centaurs starting to cycle charge in the front line a little bit and break through some of these Peasant Mobs. Their barrier will help absorb some of that initial archer fire as they charge in and out in this engagement here. You can see the Knights preparing to receive them, but Knights don't actually get their charge, which is going to be a huge downside. Knights of the Realm rely very much on that 65 charge bonus to deal effective damage, so not going to be ideal by any means. Albric also needs to fly around in a way to get a regrowth. Royal Pegasus Knights, which I hadn't seen before, come in and just absolutely crush those Screamers. Going to crush the next unit of Screamers also. And yeah, Knights of the Realm in the backline taking some damage, but Knights of the Lion-Hearted and the Grail Knights likely to collapse. We see the Men-at-Arms also in a nice supporting position as well. Tzeentch's infantry a little bit late on the follow-up, but nonetheless we'll be able to get in combat shortly. Yeah, looks like the Grail Knights actually still in reserve in the woods, now being deployed. So Bretonnia having some space to work with here. Ooh, yeah, these Knights of the Realm are going to peel out of that engagement, not wanting to get overwhelmed by Centaurs. We've got more Centaurs busting through the gaps through the center here. Nice play by Human Boy. Get it done. We're going to see a little Burning Head from Tzeentch to just roast out one archer, charge down another archer. And Knights of the Lion-Hearted, Grail Knights can only be in so many places at once to try and stem this tide. Although the Royal Pegasus Knights and Albric will come for a nice rear charge to shut down these Tzeentchian Centaurs. Foul magics be gone, says the Noble Knights of Bretonnia as they charge on through. League of Extraordinary Degenerates. Yes, that is the tournament semifinal being hosted by the NC clan. Full Umbrella being the master of ceremonies, of course. Yeah, I'm just hosting the semifinals for today, and it has been quite the series from what I understand. A little regrowth on Albric there as he continues to scrap. Looks like Knights of the Lion-Hearted continuing to fight it out there as well. The Tzeentchian infantry starting to prevail and get through. Knights of Bretonnia definitely have their work cut out for them, but we're going to see a little duel between Albric and the Tzeentchian Lord. Of course, his axe halberd will be quite effective if he is going to actually do attacks on Albric. He might just turn around and get stabbed in the back here by the trident. Does look like the barrier is holding pretty well, though, so yeah, Tzeentchian character going to be tough to take out, but support's starting to evaporate, and these Knights, Grail Knights in particular, still completely healthy. So the Bretonnian build, in many ways, just needs to buy time for, you know, time and space for the Grail Knights to be able to prevail here, along with the Royal Pegasus Knights, obviously. But we'll see. They certainly do have a lot of targets to get through still. I mean, the Marauders are not really much of an issue. They should be able to be rear charged out fairly easily as long as Bretonnia doesn't lose their leadership. But here, the Tzeentch Lord, despite his decent stats, gets pummeled by Albric and is going to get terrified away here. Yeah, Albric, Foe Secret active, refreshing his vigor, a little extra speed. A few Tzeentchian spears aren't really going to help too much the Lord from getting absolutely wrecked. Likewise, the Centaurs also struggling in some pockets. Infantry is definitely winning out, but it's relatively low value engagement. These Marauders here can only hold up so well against the Heavy Knights of Bretonnia, so initially, yeah, I'm the balance of power definitely mirroring that, but Bretonnia in a pretty decisive lead at this point, and it looks like Human Boy is going to throw in the towel there, so nice victory for Tzeentch over Bretonnia. As far as sort of the rock, paper, scissors of the meta factions go, Tzeentch into Bretonnia is probably the worst matchup for Bretonnia, I would think. I'd have to maybe play around with it a little bit myself and see, but just, you know, going off of based on what I've seen and played and sort of on paper as well, Tzeentch being sort of the anti-large chaos faction, right, gives them a good leg up on Bretonnia. But at the same time, Bretonnia definitely has a lot of potent tools, and there's a reason why Grail tier units are limited in the tournament rule sets, because they are just so strong. And yeah, the new Tzeentch Lord's pretty good, but not quite good enough to stand up against a proper flying monster like Albric. Definitely goes to show how much the HP buffs to Hippogriffs help, because even somebody like Karl Franz, I think, would struggle a little bit more in that matchup because of the lack of HP. Another thing too, regrowth, right? Because it's percentage-based healing, the more base HP you have, the more it heals. So, I mean, Albric, in many ways, is better than Karl in that way that he actually receives more healing from an individual regrowth. So, per Winds of Magic, you actually get more HP out of it. But anyway, very interesting stuff. Honestly, well played to both players. Nice initial engagements by the Screamers there, eventually getting crushed by the Royal Pegasus Knights. But definitely interesting. Let me go ahead and switch to the screen blocker to give some sense of suspense. And we're also going to switch perspectives to Berserk. So now, zooming in here, we've got Berserk versus Human Boy once again. This time, Lizardmen versus Greenskins. So Lizardmen is another sort of top tier-ish faction. I don't know if they're quite S+ like some of the other tiers, but they're probably up there. Buffs they received definitely helped in many ways, especially their lower end of the roster, but let's see what they can do here. Berserk coming in with a Slan of Fire. Love that pick. We've also got some Kroxigors here and Saurus Warriors. Looks like Skink Skirmishers and some more Saurus. A couple of Horned ones. Very heavy cavalry with some Spear Riders as well. And a Rev Crystal Bastildon, now immune to flanking, which is a nice upgrade for all the Bastildons, honestly. You do take them pretty frequently anyway, but taking a look at the Greenskins here, Warzag leading the way despite his nerfs, still a solid option. Rusty Airs and Savage Orc Air Boys for lots of Daka. Got some Squig Herds on the sides with some Broken Tusk Mob, Savage Orc, Boar Boy Biggins. Nice elite-ish cavalry. Yeah, Night Goblins, Goblins in the center. Some Mangy Marauders in the back. So not a ton of trolls, to be honest. Not a ton of stone trolls. And given the current meta, I would actually expect to see Skarsnik in this matchup. I mean, I was a big fan of Skarsnik all throughout pretty much Warhammer 2 against the Lizardmen, especially in combination with certain build aspects, but especially considering the Enrage now, making Fermented Fungi a meta-tier ability, definitely, in my opinion. I would definitely go Skarsnik over Warzag here. The anti-large upside also is going to be great for fighting big dinos or Kroxigors, both of which are very likely to be seen in this matchup, I think. But, I mean, Warzag's definitely not a bad choice by any means. I just, yeah, I'm definitely a fan of Skarsnik, especially with the changes to Enrage. I think he's a solid option for sure. Of course, he himself is also anti-large AP, so can actually help fight dinos, especially if he's saturated in something like Black Orcs. But anyway, gonna see some Fanatics get unleashed here through the woods as the Fire Slan comes through. 8 Peak Loons have taken a lot of damage as they've advanced here, which means they are only really going to get the one Fanatics cast, although it did a pretty heinous amount of damage to multiple units. Squigs also charging into the second level, getting intercepted by Kroxigors. We're going to see some spells being cast there. Fists of Gork on the Squigs. I love that, honestly, just to devour some Skink Skirmishers. Kroxigors countered by Shield of the Old Ones, though, pretty effectively. Going to be able to hold that engagement up. Ooh, a nice placement, too, by Berserk on this Banishment. It's going to catch a couple of units, just slightly blobbed up. Almost timed it perfectly to hit the Mangy Marauders as well. Not quite, but it is going to do some damage on them. Yeah, Cold One Spear Riders defending this backline area as the Skink Skirmishers fire in. The Bastildon also just kind of providing some Poison Overwatch right now, poisoning various units in this area. That's the nice thing about Lizardmen. They're when you're playing as them, at least. It's very painful when you're playing against them. It'll poison constant on all of your units. Granted, Greenskins also have pretty wide access to poison as well, but not quite same level as the lizards. And this little slope here also is becoming a factor in this engagement. It's a pretty small slope, but it's very steep at the specific place where the engagement's happening, which I do think is actually giving the Lizardmen a pretty substantial advantage locally in this engagement, despite the ranged fire coming through. Speaking of fire, on the ranged, nice burning head cutting across those Savage Orc Air Boys as Wah kicks in for the Greenskins, but the Lizardmen keeping a nice kind of defensive posture here. It's not very clean, it's a little bit messy and chaotic, but it's a defensive posture nonetheless, able to keep a lot of these skink skirmishers protected, keeping those croc scores in reserve, and using the Cold One Spear Riders to kind of countercharge. Same thing with the Cold Ones too, or the Horde ones rather. Don't know that they're necessarily trading super cost effective, but yeah, just staying defensive here as Human Boy continues to assault. Does manage to eat up this skink skirmisher that got caught out of position there. But it's going to turn into a little bit of a shootout, which is not completely unheard of with these two factions. Orc Air Boys being good AP. Again, very good against dinos, especially in large numbers like was brought here. I definitely understand that aspect. Little magic missile there on the Slon. I don't know, did Warzag even take his Bonewood Staff? Yeah, if you don't have the Bonewood Staff, I'm not really sure. I mean, FG to get's really the only side to taking him, and like I understand Bonewood Staff is not map-wide anymore, but still, you could be getting some benefit casting some spells, you know, around these units that are fighting. Would be getting you some little bit of extra support synergy. But let's see here. Lizardman definitely in a commanding position. That's certainly anyone's game still. It all depends if these Savage Orc Air Boys can kite it out a little bit and use the rest of their ammunition effectively. Sora Spears are not going to be... Actually, I don't know. In a melee engagement, Savage Orc Air Boys only have 10 melee defense, so the Sora Spears actually will do just fine. But they will take some damage in the process. I mean, 34 melee attack on Savage Orc Air Boys is much higher than a lot of other range units, but the big engagement he is here in this big center blob. Little banishment also on that outside blob. Savage Orcs in particular lacking any armor. Relying completely on that physical resistance to take a lot of damage from AoE spells and such. So the banishment's definitely a good option. And just in general, I mean, the Slon's 216 kills, almost 2,000 damage values, so definitely been cutting down the horde of Greenskins with magic. Slowly over time, grinding ahead on the balance of power. And we're just going to see FG to get there on those Cold One Spear Riders. They have a Cascading Fire Cloak to shore up their melee defense, though, as the Savage Orc Boys charge in. It's going to be a bloody, brutal last stand for them, but they should be able to win. We'll see. Warzag now getting caught here in the center. It's a very bad position for him to be in. Source are quite high mass, and if they're able to get a surround effectively on him, he's going to get pretty well stuck. Let's see, even just a couple of unit models you can see there are almost enough to keep him pinned in, but he is able to escape. So that said, plenty of skink skirmishers on station to cut through his 55 armor. Lots of ammunition left as well. I don't know, are these skink skirmishers actually set to melee mode to just go attack those Savage Orc Air Boys in melee? It actually kind of makes sense, to be honest. Just shut down the AP missiles and allow maybe the Saurus to counter collapse or one of these other melee-oriented units to get in there, tangle it up. Nice use of these mangy marauders also, chasing those ratting croc scores. We see the skinks come in out of control. Going to come through and try and get on those skink skirmishers once more. Another shield to the old ones to protect those Sora Spears as they get a surround on Warzag, and that's pretty much going to trigger army losses as Warzag starts to take some damage in a surround. Yeah, those Sora Spears have fairly hefty weapon strength. And just like that, Berserk is up 2-0 on the series. A beautiful game by the Lizardmen with Lore of Fire Salon too. Nice to see the off-meta not Lore of Life pick for Lizardmen. And, I mean, the AoE damage Salon, maximum AoE damage Salon is one I personally am a big fan of. I was so happy when they added the Fire Salon, honestly. It's one of my favorites to use in campaign and just in general for the Lizardmen. Such a fun pick. And if you need to cut through a horde, it is one of the best picks, certainly. That's exactly what happened here. Just clearing out hordes and hordes of Greenskins. And, yeah, looking pretty good overall. So let's go to the next game. Will Human Boy be able to pull it back, or can Berserk close out the series on a clean sweep? Let's get to the next replay. We're going to once again go from Berserk's perspective, and it's going to be classically terrible matchup for one of the best factions currently in the game, which is the Beastmen. A lot of people in my comments recently have been talking some smack about the vampire counts, talking about how bad they are, this and that. This has historically been one of the toughest matchups for the Beastmen, and one of the best matchups for vampire counts throughout the course of Total War Warhammer 1, 2, and 3. And I'm curious to see how this one in particular goes. I do love the Dread Column formation from the zombies. From Berrserk, we also see Manfred von Karstein, a couple of Vargeist up in the air. Banshee's a great choice here for some cheap terror and consistent AP DPS. We've also got Unholy Lodestone here, Necromancer also, some Skeleton Spears, Blood Knights, just lots and lots of stuff. Bats also for some extra flexibility in the sky. Love that, even though I hate vampire counts. Just 1 second, guys. Sorry, I've got to pause 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. And we're off. Let's take a look at the Beastmen build. We've got some Centaurs throwing axes, including the Grog Hooves. Looks like an incarnate elemental of beasts. Now counts as demonic, which is definitely a nerf, and has anti-infantry instead of anti-large. Still pretty solid overall, though. I've also got Centaurs, a couple of them, of Tzeentch specifically, some Raiders, Malagor up in the sky, and I'm going to start with a Fata Buna right off the bat on those Grog Hooves, which is definitely a great choice. They do have capacity to heal, though. Like, out of all the units in this Beastman build, they're the only one that can actually passively heal. So, we'll see. If they drop any unit models, they'll obviously stay dead, but they might not actually drop any unit models and be able to recover a substantial amount of that HP if they're not engaged immediately by the vampire counts here. So, not saying it's a complete waste of Winds of Magic, but yeah, you can see Human Boy just kind of pulls them back, allows them to regenerate that HP. They actually didn't lose a single unit model, so they have plenty of capacity to heal themselves back up. Alright, my cat's like bumping into my microphone stand a little bit. I don't know if you can hear that, but anyway, yeah, Incarnate of Elemental Beast does deal magic damage, though, so it's going to come through and try and get on the Banshee as the vampires start to filter into the front line very slowly. Engage those Ungors in the front. Yeah, the Banshee... It's a rough situation. The Centaurs also deal magic damage, so although this previously probably was a fairly solid pick against the Beastmen, actually in this most recent, they got even more magic damage between, you know, Zangors and Centaurs of Tzeentch and Incarnate of Elemental Beasts. Actually do have some units with passive magic attacks now, and the Banshee's gonna... Oh, yeah. Oh, that's so painful, too. Like 8, Invocation of the Heck right before she died, so a small loss of Winds of Magic and a small loss of value as well, but tactically it definitely hurts. That said, there's still plenty of terror left on the field for vampire counts, so should be able to get some leadership stuff going. We'll see. The Blood Knights sweeping up and around the flank, looking for avenues to charge in, get some of these squishy backline units. Love the zombie summons in the backline to disrupt Ungor Raiders, who are surprisingly some of the best low-tier skirmishers in the entire game. Yeah, looking good so far. It's going to be a grind fest in the front line as we've got spears fighting zombies, so definitely going to be you know, wet noodle contest. A little bit of Flock of Doom upgraded also to counteract that Unholy Lodestone. Or is the Unholy Lodestone actually counteracting the Flock of Doom? Probably the latter. And yeah, again, not to criticize too much, but I'd probably be using the Flock of Doom on the Blood Knights pretty much exclusively. I mean, just over time, the DPS you're going to be able to do. I mean, granted, there's a lot of units here, but if you total all of the units here, it's not even, like, it's maybe half of them out that the Blood Knights by themselves are. So, like, especially here where you can hit, like, the Blood Knights and the Bats and some of these other lower model count units at the same time. And just as I say that, the Flock of Doom, this time from the Incarnate of Elemental Beasts, is going to go off. We'll deal a little bit of damage there. Dance Macabre on those Blood Knights, give them some extra melee attack as they kind of fight in a little bit of a sustained fight there. I'm a big fan of Dance Macabre. You don't see it a ton these days, but definitely one of the best spells, in my opinion, for vampire counts to increase their killing power. Certainly, it's one of the few ways to directly buff your killing power, especially considering a lot of undead units have kind of low melee attack. But Howl the Great Beast, reducing their leadership, trying to send those Blood Knights into crumbling. They are holding firm, at least for the time being, though. A little bit of crumbling, maybe, but Invocation of the Heck will keep them healed up for the most part. The Vargeists are able to support in here. Manfred also staying close to help their leadership stabilize. And yeah, the Centaurs are relentlessly pursuing, but in the process they are taking massive damage as well. So nice little kite situation there by the Vampire Counts. Not too often you see the Vampire Counts actually kiting, but a little bit of kiting here, circling around, cycle charging. Blood Knights turn around and with a more favorable engagement are able to beat down those Centaurs. Although still getting constantly drained by the Incarnate of Elemental Beasts, who is just, again, relentlessly pursuing Manfred on the ground, trying to keep him pinned there. We'll see, maybe the Vargeist can screen. Keep that in the background as we take a wide view once more. Vargeist, Fellbats doing a great job chasing, routing Beastmen, preventing them from coming back. Same thing here, Centaur is likely to get chased off, but let's see, Blood Knights need to stay close. They're going to need to help Manfred against the Incarnate of Elemental Beasts in the late game, so definitely need to keep them alive. Still have plenty of healing cap space left, but anyway. Yeah, looking pretty good. Again, this grind fight's just continuing to go on here. Not really a lot to talk about, just low-tier infantry slogging it out. The Beastmen are likely to eventually win, because they actually do have some high-quality units mixed in here. But this will take them quite some time, and time is a resource all on its own, especially for a faction like the Vampire Counts. It very much favors slowing the game down to a crawl and, you know, just grinding it out in that manner. Let's see, Manfred's got a beautiful opportunity for a breath attack here. And yeah, Beastman kind of sensing it, trying to move at least the high-value Blackhorn's Ravagers away. Still, though, the Destroyers of Drakwall get absolutely clobbered on that breath attack. And it's going to be pretty painful there. That will quickly turn that engagement around what was likely to be a Beastman win into victory for the Vampires, perhaps. Who knows? Blackhorn's Ravagers actually do get their charge bonus, which is nice. Charge for Beastman infantry is overall quite good. 24 on them means they'll do a little bit of extra damage there on the charge, but we'll see. I mean, the loss of those low-tier spears definitely hurts. Not a ton, but it does hurt a bit. Centaurs also staying alive. Just singing the ABBA song, and we're seeing a lot of the vampire units start to disintegrate. They are starting to kind of run out of steam a little bit. That passive healing able to sustain some units, but the Beastmen are able to win locally in a lot of engagements. So yeah, we'll see here. We will see. Maybe maybe Human Boy can get back in this. It's looking decent for him right now, but of course Vampire Counts are one of the toughest factions to actually finish off. Have lots of capacity to heal and sustain, especially in the late game. And like you can see a lot of these units kind of forming up around this Unholy Lodestone. This is going to be a super important piece in the late game, and if I were in the Beastman's position, I might actually try and dedicate some resources to sniping the Unholy Lodestone to get rid of that passive healing. Necromancer is also going to be subjected to the snipe attempt, but, you know, honestly, he's on foot. All he's really doing is giving extra winds of magic, and a little bit of passive healing, I guess, as well from the Master of the Dead passive. But, yeah, the Unholy Lodestone as well, refreshing the vigor of all these troops. Yeah, it is helping quite a few units. Has helped these Tides stay alive and contest against much superior, more expensive units for quite some time. That said, the Necromancer is gonzo, as are the Tithe most likely, but we'll see. In the meantime, the mobile forces, the Vampires, have been able to form up a little bit of a death ball and are starting to just smash individual units out in the open field. Manfred's still got zombie summons in his pocket as well, so he can form a little mobile anvil to hammer into with his Knights and Vargeist. Unholy Lodestone starting to take some damage, though. Let's see, will he choose to go bail it out or just let it to its fate? I mean, it's just about its healing cap anyway at this point. It would be nice to get that extra passive healing on some of these mobile units and to use it also as an anchor, but let's see, Berserk instead. Well, he's moving for it. I don't know if he'll get there in time, but at the very least can try and get some of these isolated units off of the side of this formation here. Yeah, the high weapon strength of the Incarnate just absolutely seal clubs the corpse cart, and it does go down, so that's at least going to shut off the passive healing for a lot of units. That said, I mean, the Blood Knights are just about at their healing cap anyway. Vargeist, they have the hunger as well. I guess all these units actually have the hunger that are remaining pretty much for the Vampire Counts, so they still have some capacity for passive healing and should be able to sustain through this late game. We'll see. It's all going to come down to another nice breath attack there on the Blackhorn's Ravagers. That'll significantly impact their leadership. likely to tear out on this charge. Let's see, Manfred does commit himself down onto the Incarnate of Elemental Beast. The Blood Knights are going to follow up in a second wave here. Vargeist initially with him, and a little Spirit Leech there for some extra single target DPS as Malagor gets chased around by the Vargeist. I mean, Malagor could maybe stand and fight against the Vargeist. It's hard to say if that's wise or not. Probably is going to get beat up pretty hard, but he's not a pushover by any means. But instead, he's going to try and rally to the Beast. It is definitely taking some hits here. But let's zoom in close, watch Manfred and the Dragon fight against this giant elemental. Looking very, very cool. Another big flock of doom as well. Going to hit all these Vampire Counts units that are remaining. A few more of those, and the Beastmen might actually win. The Incarnate of Elemental Beast also is just feasting on drain value right now. The Incarnate Flock of Doom. Yeah, it is going to be shut off soon, though, if the Incarnate keeps taking damage. Will not be able to continue draining, as that is conditional to its hit points being above 25% HP. But strong versus 15 and above, that's interesting damage scaling wise. That means it is hitting the Vargeist for maximum possible damage. And, you know, other monstrous infantry type units, I guess I didn't realize. I thought it was the same, like, damage scaling 25 as something like Fate of Yuna, but looking good there. More cycle charging from the air by the Vampire Counts, and the Beastmen can do nothing but just take it at this point. Incarnate of Elemental Beasts, although it does count as demonic leadership, because the leadership is so high base, it is pretty hard to get it into instability, as you have seen here. Almost impossible to actually make it disintegrate, but it is technically possible, and with that, it is likely going to spell the end of the series. We'll fast forward a little bit through this endgame as Human Boy makes his final stand with Malagor on the ground, but alas, can't stand against the might of Manfred. So Berserk taking home the win with the Vampire Counts, showing all those haters, bony boys, still got it. What a series. What a series. Yeah, even though the games were all really close, it was still a 3-0 sweep for Berserk, but Human Boy definitely acquitted himself well. The scoreboard does not indicate how close the series actually was, because Human Boy definitely had a chance in all those games. It's not like any of the games, I would say, were just clean sweeps. But, yeah, rip the rat indeed. Very well played to Human Boy and to Berserk. Fun and fast and furious. And, yeah, the Elemental Beast of Incarnate still very good, definitely without the anti-large. An anti-infantry actually, I think, makes it arguably better in some instances where it was actually designed to be used against infantry, but, anyway, yeah, GG's indeed. It's gonna be, that's gonna be it for today. Just a nice quick stream, so thank you all so much for coming out. It's been my absolute pleasure. I'm just gonna try and stream more. I always say that, but rarely does it actually happen. We'll see. Maybe this week I'll get a midweek stream in. Maybe we'll do like a King of the Hill or something. I don't know. But yeah, have fun, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekends. I'm going to be making a Patreon announcement likely this week as well, so stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for coming out. We'll see you next time.